Good morning, good people. Welcome to DFS Minute brought to you by DFSArmy.com, your one-stop shop for all things daily fantasy sports. I'm going to focus on NHL today because I just got a great question from a member new to hockey who kind of asked about the scoring lines, power play lines, how all that stuff works out. And I wanted to at least walk through and show you the basics. We have a lot of people coming over from NBA this week due to the All-Star break, and a lot of people maybe don't understand the very basics of correlation in hockey. So that's what we're going to go through in this DFS Minute. If you're interested in coaching and VIP type material, of course, cheat sheets and all the good stuff that's leading to over $750,000 in cumulative VIP winnings so far this year, 2020, you need to go down to the comments section and click the link, dfsarmy.com. Use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P, trigger that 20% off discount every single month you remain a member, and jump in here and start interacting with us. Easiest thing to do is show you some line combinations. Let's use Boston. Boston's a popular team. And dailyfaceoff.com is one place that we can go because it kind of lays things out pretty well. This top three skaters, left wing, center, right wing, are typically forwards, and those are doing a lot of the scoring and getting a lot of the assists typically in a hockey team. We've got line 1 here, line 2 here, line 3 here. What that means is these three guys are usually going to be on the ice as a unit. They share ice time pretty much constantly unless the coach makes a change. And when one guy scores, usually one of these other two guys has a piece with an assist. They overlap a little bit because we know hockey is 5-on-5. They tend to overlap a little bit with these defensive pairings. But most people make a mistake in considering this a five-man unit with three forwards and two defensemen. It's not exactly the case. These three forwards are a unit, and these defensive pairings are another unit almost separately. Yes, the top line and the top defensive pairing tend to spend most of the time on the ice. Therefore, they tend to spend most of the time on the ice together. But the coaches don't typically swap five players at a time. They do when whistle stops play and whatnot, but when there's a lot of action on the fly and not a lot of stoppage in play, a lot of times they're making these swaps 3 for 3 or 2 for 2. They'll take the top line of skaters out and bring the second line on and keep this defensive pairing out there for an extra minute or so and then swap them off and then go back and swap the top three forwards out again. So you get overlap with these defensive players. So a lot of times Zdeno Chara and Charlie McAvoy will share a lot of time with Marchand Bergeron and Pastrnak, but they will also share a good deal of time with DeBrusk, Krejci, and Kuhlman, or even Bjork, Coyle, or Heinen, whatever. What you're looking for in these typical scoring lines or these correlations, because hockey is a very, very correlated sport, is you do want guys that are on the ice together a lot. We denote that with line 1 for scoring, line 2 for scoring, line 3 for scoring, etc. Defensive 1, defensive 2, even sometimes defensive 3. And like I said before, when one of these guys gets, nets a goal, then one of these other guys on the ice with him are oftentimes in line for the assist. And that's how you stockpile points, by getting a lot of points off of one particular scoring play. Much like a home run in baseball when you've got guys on base. Much like a quarterback who throws the ball to your wide receiver and you own both, and you get both those sets of points off of the touchdown. Very, very similar structure to hockey, but probably even more so. Correlation is key when it comes to hockey. And the way to correlate is to take, if you like Marchand tonight, don't take Bjork. Take Bergeron or Pastrnak with him, or at the very least, take one of the defensive guys that's going to be on the ice with him quite a bit. That's going to give you the best chance at getting the assist when a goal is scored if you guess right on Marchand. Another way to look at this is the power play units. So the power play unit is going to be five guys, and they're not always, there's Torrey Krug, so they're not always the top line. So it's not always that top scoring line with that top defensive pairing. Sometimes it's mixed and matched a little bit. So this line, this set of five guys does share ice time together on the power play. When the other team takes a penalty and Boston gets to keep five guys out there and the other team only has four guys out there, this is the first unit that's going to come out and get the most of the power play time. They have a obviously higher likelihood of scoring a goal on a power play because they have one more guy on the ice than the other team. and the other team is playing completely defensively, and oftentimes these guys get into that offensive zone into close to the other team's net, and they just start firing relentlessly while the other team panics and tries to block as many shots as they can for a couple of minutes, however long the power play lasts. You see Marchand, Bergeron, and DeBrusk on this top power play unit. DeBrusk came off of that second line again? So there's a very, very important thing to notice here. This is line 1, line 1, line 1, this is line 2, and this is a defensive unit 2. If you wanted to, you could say that Torrey Krug here on line 2 correlates very well with Jacob DeBrusk on line 2 because second defensive pairing, second scoring unit, but they also do get at least a little bit of a piece of these three guys. If these three guys score a goal on the power play, DeBrusk or Krug might have had a shot at it. They might have passed them the puck and gotten the assist. So they do gain access. If Marchand has a big night, DeBrusk might pick up a couple of ancillary points as a result. They are slightly correlated in this instance. They're not as heavily correlated as Bergeron and Pastrnak because that scoring line at even strength 5 versus 5 is going to be on the ice more often than the power play units because obviously their power plays and penalties and whatnot are not called quite as much as they are, as the teams are skating at even strength when it comes to hockey. But these are the things to remember. You can, as long as you understand kind of how this correlation goes, then you've got the basics down cold. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you two little tricks. Number one, inside the Army Research Station, I'm going to show you that these are the guys that are on the same skating lines. This is line 1, and this is the power play unit they are on. Let me find Boston for you just because, let's hope Boston's even on the slate. Hey, lucky me, they are. Marchand, Bergeron, Pastrnak. Remember line 1? That's the L1. And they're all on the power play 1, PP1. Okay, that's how you denote that, and that's how you can start. So these guys are on the ice pretty much the whole game. Doesn't matter what the game situation is. Are they on the power play? They're on the ice together. Are they at even strength? They're on the ice together. These guys correlate with each other very, very heavily. You come down here to the defensive units, and none of them share power play unit time with these guys. So they will be separated some. However, at even strength, they're going to be on the ice with this top unit quite a bit. They're the top defensive pairing. They're going to log the most minutes typically, and therefore they're going to be out there with that top scoring line most often. So they correlate, pretty well. Not as well as these three guys correlate together, but they do correlate with them really well. Jacob DeBrusk is not on the ice with them at all during even strength power play, or during even strength time, which is the majority of the game. He is, however, out there with them on the power play unit. So again, he slightly correlates with these top three players because he does at least share the ice with them some, just not a lot. Now, David Krejci does not at all, and Kuhlman does not at all correlate with these guys. These two correlate well with each other. They correlate well with DeBrusk because they're on this second line together the majority of the game. But they don't correlate at all with these three guys up here because they don't share the power play with them. Okay, so not even slightly. I would not use Krejci and Bergeron in the same lineup in this instance because they don't correlate at all. I would try to get these guys together if I could. I would try to get these guys together if I could. If I overlapped a little bit, I might correlate one of these three guys with DeBrusk just because they share power play time, if that makes sense. I would come down here to the defensive pairing and do the same thing. Krug is very, very similar. Krug is kind of a linchpin in this situation, which is why you'll hear us talk about wing defenseman or center wing defenseman type stacks. That defenseman can be a link between DeBrusk and this top line. Say I pick Bergeron and DeBrusk, they correlate together on the power play. They do not correlate at even strength. However, Krug is on the ice with both of them at even strength and definitely on the power play. He's going to be on the ice with DeBrusk a little bit at even strength because the defensemen, remember I said they kind of overlap a little bit of that line 1, line 2, line 3 type situation. So it doesn't really matter at even strength. They're going to pick up at least a little bit of ice time together during the game. And they're going to be out there on the with Marchand or Bergeron the exact same. Krug's going to be out there with Bergeron just like he's out there with DeBrusk a little bit too. But most heavily, they're going to really correlate on the power play. I hope this is making sense. I hope it's not giving more confusion than it is actually helping, because to those of us that play a lot of hockey, this is the numbers that we look for. We look for these L1s, we look for these PP1s, and if we see L1 next to a couple of our players, we know they're correlated at even strength. If we see PP1 next to our players and we see an L1 and an L2, we know they're not correlated at even strength, but they are at least correlated a little bit on the power play, so that's fine if that's what an optimizer gives us or that's what we need for salary cap purposes. At least it correlates a little bit. We try not to build lineups using the same team or using the same skaters from the same team that are completely uncorrelated, because in hockey that doesn't really translate into points. You could use Marchand, Nugent Hopkins, and then another guy and another guy and another guy, all from different teams, and it's the exact same really as Marchand and Krejci, because none of them are correlated. Hockey, correlation matters. It parlays points together. So when we are using skaters from the same team, we try to make sure that it's at least correlated in some way, hopefully as strong as possible. Okay, that's why you hear line 1 stacks, power play 1 stacks, etc., because those are the heaviest correlation you can get in hockey, and it tends to parlay those points more often than some of these others that are just slightly correlated. So what would I do in Domination Station if I ran a few lineups? I'll show you that really quick, and then we'll burn out of here. I would open up the slate. NHL, FanDuel, DraftKings, doesn't really matter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games. I'm not going to talk about focusing on teams. I'm not going to talk about focusing on players. You'll get all of that later on today. You'll certainly get it from our coaching cheat sheets, from our coaching notes, and from all of the Slack discussion that is already going on and starting to pick apart the slate. So, I mean, if you're not a VIP, that's where you're going to get a lot of the value out of the membership, especially if you don't know much about hockey because you play mostly NBA. If I run 5 lineups, and I run just a couple of unique players, and that's the only adjustments that I really make, other than I will do a little bit of stacking. I will pick Boston. I won't even double stack it. I just want to run 3 Boston players in 100% of these lineups. And then I'm going to pick off of that top line. Look, didn't even give me Boston, give me Minnesota somehow. There's Boston. All right, so I've got Marchand, Pastrnak. See how DeBrusk is on that line too, but the power play 1, so he does correlate at least a little bit with these guys. There's Bergeron, and then I would throw in Torrey Krug. So there's the 5 guys that I mentioned. That's that top power play unit, that first 5 guys. But you've got a couple of line 1s and line 2s. But no matter which of the 3 guys that I pick in this stack, they're going to at least be correlated a little bit. Some might be correlated really strongly with the L1 PP1 guys. Some might be a little less correlated with the L2 PP1 guys. But if I get Krug in there with DeBrusk, that's L2 and L2, and PP1, that's going to correlate somewhere in between. It's not going to be slightly correlated. It's not going to be massively correlated. It's going to be some, kind of moderately correlated, but pretty well. So if I just click that off and let it run 3 to 5 lineups, and just pick whatever it wants to pick elsewhere. The projections are going to do a lot of that. I'm just focused on Boston in my first set of stacking. I can do it with double stacking if I want to. Again, that's down the road, a little bit more sophisticated stuff. But once we start getting some of these lineups in here, we can start kicking it down. And look, there's Bergeron, Marchand, Krug. So I've got a defenseman in there with 2 top line forwards. This is how you're checking your lineups for correlation. If I saw there's Edmonton. So it threw me 3 Edmonton guys. Look at this. Line 1, line 1, line 1, line 1, line 1, line 1. Those 3 are heavily correlated as well. So I've got decent correlation here with Krug in there with Marchand and Bergeron, who are heavily correlated. And my second stack of Yamamoto, Draisaitl, and Nurse, boom, 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 heavily correlated as well. So, and then, a little Minnesota one-off and a Florida one-off, whatever. This is a double stacked lineup that is heavily correlated inside those stacks with a one-off in Minnesota and a one-off in Florida. this is a strong lineup. This is a type of lineup. If you submitted it to me at 4 p.m. today and said, what do you think? I'd say it looks great. I'm not worried when I'm looking at your lineups. I'm not so worried unless we really get into discussion, which, an hour before lock is not the time for that. I'm not really looking at the specific teams, the specific plays. If they're on the cheat sheets or they're on one of the teams that is scheduled to score a lot of goals tonight, I'm going to say, great, fine, run it. However, I am looking for the correlation inside that lineup. I want to know that Bergeron, Marchand, and Krug are correlated. I don't want to see Krejci in there with them, because if I see that, I'll tell you that's not really as correlated as it could be. But if I saw, a couple of Edmonton Oilers, I'm going to check really quick and see what's their correlation. In this case, line one, line one, line one. It's great. I'm going to say you got line one in Boston, line one in Edmonton, a couple of one-offs that might do well. Fine, run it. You're great. And that is a sign that you've at least built a lineup that has a fighting chance. The stronger the lineup gets is going to come down to a lot of different factors: how the night goes, who's in the best matchups, what the value play is, maybe, for one of the one-offs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of that stuff is stuff for deeper discussion. So I'll leave you to decide whether or not you want to become a VIP and figure that out. But now you look here, we've got Bergeron, Marchand, and Krug again. Draisaitl, Nurse, Yamamoto again. But the couple of different players are Suter and Foxes, so a Dallas and a Vancouver one-off now. So the lineup changed just a smidge, but it looks to me like tonight, our lineup optimizer early on in the days, if I pick Boston, it's going to like Edmonton because it's throwing Edmonton in as a stack with the Boston stuff. Tells me it's cheap because Boston's typically expensive. Tells me there's probably some value in the Edmonton situation. We'll have to wait and see what our coaches say, how much they like Edmonton tonight. But if I do my own research, I'm going to bet you I'm going to come across some Edmonton tonight as well. Being that the domination station's already throwing that at me, it's probably pretty obvious to pick up on for somebody with a little bit of NHL experience. So, in summary, make sure your lineups are correlated. Use line 1 and power play 1 or line 2 and power play 2 or whatever to make sure those numbers kind of are the same. Line 1, line 1, line 1, line 2, line 2, line 2, whatever, or power play 1, power play 1 to show you that they are connected, that they are correlated. Number 2, stack your lineups, especially in tournaments. You may focus more in cash games on pairs rather than a full 3-man or 4-man stack, but in tournaments you typically are going to want bigger stacks. Now, that's up for debate as well, but that's what I would tell you as a beginning player. Number 3, use our research, use our sheets to pick goalies, because a lot of times the goalies have a little bit of an edge here or there. And then number 4, use our coaching cheat sheets to round out for value plays and key stacks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can hand build, you can use the optimizer, you can use the cheat sheets, you can use the research station. All of these tools are at your disposal as a VIP inside DFS Army. But most importantly, we have the coaches to answer your questions. That's probably the biggest thing, because if you're brand new to the sport, you're going to have questions. It's fine. We understand that. We know that, especially if you're coming from NBA. We're ready to handle them. We're ready to help them. We're ready to help you win like a lot of our guys did last night. We popped multiple $300, $400, $500 winners and a couple well over $1,000 last night. One guy won 15 grand. So you'll see that stuff out on Twitter. Give me a follow out there at Chapadong or at DFS Army. And we'll communicate one way or the other and finally show you this is the best value in all of DFS for every single sport, every single tool, every single bit of coaching, one low price. Click that link down there, hit the like and subscribe, and smash that notification button while you're down there, and I will talk to you guys in a couple of days. Peace out.